And as you said, it's difficult to find our inspirational mentor in a book. However, there's a lot of literature on successful entrepreneurs who have passion and vision, like you, Niklas. But when I first started my startup, I noticed a side that is not often mentioned. Like, there's not only the joy of founding, there's also the dark and emotional side of entrepreneurship. And like suffering, feeling anxious, sometimes block my daily life. What is your view on the emotional struggles of an entrepreneurial process? And maybe to clarify the question, can you give us an example for that, please?
Sure. No, so I think... Yes. So I think, obviously, because these are humans we're dealing with, and different humans are wired differently and have different ways of motivation. But for sure, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are kind of, because they're on such a mission, and that's the most important thing, and failing that mission, although failure is something that every entrepreneur is day to day is used to, but like but not achieving your long-term objective is something that might be burdening you. But that is also the one that kind of keep you kind of going. And so I think this is very kind of different for different individuals. But I think that it's what I think one word that a lot of entrepreneurs have is grit, which is actually a really good book. It's called Grit, which you should read. But it's about, you need to have that passion, but also you need to have that perseverance to kind of just not give up, just go for it. And because you're realizing that achieving the goal is, whatever you do to achieve the goal is something that's rewarding. So that it's like, if you work harder, if you kind of stretch yourself, although it's really uncomfortable, you do it because you know that you want to achieve a bigger goal. And I think that's a commonality for a lot of successful entrepreneurs. But there's a lot of entrepreneurs for sure which are, which are kind of, it consumes all of you. I'm sure, like when I'm in my zone, it consumes all of what I'm doing, and I struggle to focus on other things. But that's, I think that's also. But if you don't have the passion, you need to have the. If you don't have the passion and the vision, then it's very hard to have the perseverance. If you only have the dark side, it's going to be really, really difficult. But there are a lot of entrepreneurs who kind of burn out and they really struggle. And I think that's also where what I said before is important, that there's other people who are supporting. So it's not just like one person. And also, if there's a few people, we see most of our companies we're investing in have multiple founders. So maybe 2 or 3 founders, and that's so good, because then you're not by yourself, because there are lots of very, very, typically there's always a lot of really difficult moments if you're a founder. Like you cannot pay your team, for example. I had those moments several times because you're trying to do something, you think you're going to get a customer, you think you can get the financing, but you also need to kind of have a team that can develop your business. And you know that you don't have money to make the payroll, but you hope that you will get some financing or some customers. Doesn't happen. That's really difficult. Those were some of the most, for me, that was some of the most difficult times when I would let my team down.
Actually, I had just a follow-up on that, and because I was listening to when you had these struggles with Kazaa and the media companies and the legal battle, and you even said, I think, that you had to change hotel rooms every night in a way, like, and you couldn't go to the States and so on. And I would probably be pretty devastated by that kind of situation. But how did you handle that?
Yeah, so it was an interesting time. So with Kazaa, which was file sharing, people could just share NA files, so MP3 files, and also MP4 videos. So we got, because we were so popular, we got the movie industry and the recording industry suing us for billions of dollars. First, that's pretty intimidating. And we were in the US, we were in California, in Los Angeles when it happened, and they tried to serve us. So we went from, me and my co-founder, from every night we shifted motel rooms, paid cash. When we checked in, they looked at us very suspiciously. But And then it's like you realize, like, wow, this is interesting. This is like living in a John Grisham movie, or so that's a joke you can make, right? And then it's like, of course, it's really intimidating, and you're like really scared and very unsettled. But then after a while, you realize, and you look at this, like, really, is that like every download is like a few thousand in fines? So then, like, that's billions and billions, and realize it doesn't matter. You can put whatever number they have, because, you know, I don't have so much. And at some point you realize, like, well, we don't really have so much to lose. And so when you kind of get comfortable with that, then it's like, then you can, and you know that what you're doing is ultimately something that is work with them and provide a service where people could pay subscription or pay per play or something like that, what you have today. They refused. So we thought that, like, we had the moral right, and we were doing something that ultimately would prevail, and that they were just kind of dinosaurs who wanted to protect their status quo and protect their big profits. So we realized, like, no, this is, and we get so much support from other people around us, and we also build a really good support network. But when you get to that situation, like, actually, what do I have to lose? And I think, and that is really important, because as a mindset, because if you go out to start a company, the reality, the statistics is that you're going to fail. That is the statistic. You're not going to be, you're not going to be a successful company. But that's something you should be okay with, because when you you might have put in some of your personal money into it, but fine, you can put in money into other things that is completely meaningless. But even if the company that you're building is failing, you're probably going to learn. Of course, this is an important program to go here, but going through that journey, that lesson to start a company and fail, you're probably going to learn much more than any kind of whatever MBA program or anything else. So that is really, so then you cannot, in that way, like, well, what can I lose, in a way? So then you have these kind of mechanisms where, like, actually then it's fine.